Hey guys, what's going on? I decided to put this video together about replacing your G37 brake shoes. I went online and tried to see if I could find anything on it, and there's a lot of videos about the brake pads themselves, but I found one only on brake shoes and it went by pretty quick. So I figured I'd put this video together and with a little bit more info on how to disassemble and assemble if in case you're trying to replace your brake shoe. The shoe pads are actually part of your handbrake system. So if your car's rolling while you're parked and you pull the handbrake up, they might need some adjustment, but some of them might just be worn out. So this is just a quick video on how to replace them. Alright guys, I already have the wheel off. The next thing we're going to want to do is remove the brake caliper. And to do that, you're going to have two bolts on the back side, which right where the brake nipples at, or the brake fluid nipples at, you're gonna have this bolt right here, and then you're gonna have this other one down here. The size is gonna be 19 mil, or you can use a 3/4. Let's go ahead and break them off. Alright guys, I got both bolts off, and we're gonna be removing the caliper. You should be able to just slide it off. And we're going to be setting it over here on the suspension components. Just make sure you don't put it on the ground because you have the brake lines right there. Last thing you want to do is rest on those brake lines. They're made out of rubber, they will tear. So anywhere on the back side should be fine. Next thing, we're going to be sliding out the rotor. I guess before you slide out the rotor, make sure your handbrake is not applied, because if it is applied, you have the little drum system. Put the pads in here, and what they do is they spring up, and they're actually holding the rotor in place. So make sure you put your handbrake down if you do have it applied. If not, the rotor's not going to slide out. Alright guys, got the rotor off. These are going to be the brake shoes right here that I'm talking about. There's one on each side. And the components we're going to be removing is going to be this spring right here. Then you have this screw that holds the shoe in place. One on the other side, and on the bottom as well, we're going to have another spring right there. It comes across this way. We're going to be moving the springs first. I think that's the easiest way to go about it. Grab some needle nose pliers. Grab the wire. Stretch and pull towards you. And there it is. There is the first one. And now for the bottom. Alright guys, this is what the bottom section looks like. The springs right here. Both sides. We'll be doing the same thing. Alright guys, you got this one loose. If you want, you could just leave it in place. It don't matter. We're about to remove the shoes here next. So I guess I'll just leave that in there for now. I ain't gonna worry about it. Alright guys, to get this removed, we're going to be turning the hub. That way you could get a screwdriver in there. So rotate it to where you could get the lines right there. Get a screw. It doesn't matter which way you turn it, left or right. It's going to be a quarter turn only. So right there you can see it's parallel. Turn it right there. And there you have it. They're removed. There's a spring. Should have caught it, but anyways, this is gonna have a little anchor design, and it has a little slot right there. So turning it a quarter, it releases it. Then if you turn it at 180, it's gonna get stuck, or halfway it'll lock back in, or do 3/4 of a turn. You see what I'm saying? So right there, you just turn it, once you lock it back just once. It doesn't matter which way. It doesn't really have a set way. And on to the next one. Same thing. We're gonna be lining it up. You can see it doesn't line up right there to get the screwdriver in there. Gotta turn it. It is spring loaded, so you catch it, and that's that. It's that easy. Here we have them. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up. Get all this cleaned up. I'm gonna be using a brake cleaner. Make sure when you're using brake cleaner you don't get it on any of the brake components themselves. That material is made to break up the actual pad. So if you have this, you might want to move it out of the way or cover it up or anything. Just make sure you don't spray it on the pads themselves. Alright, I almost forgot to mention the spring on top. It's a full spring. And on the bottom, it's stretched out and it's missing the centerpiece. That's for the clearance that it needs to make it around the locking mechanism, the cable. Which is this one right here when you pull your handbrake. It moves this section right here that's connected to the cable. But yeah, the spring, it's right there. It has that little space right there so it'll clear. So this one's gonna be on the bottom. Alright guys, here are our components. At those two, we got the springs and we have what makes it open up on top. Then we have our both brake shoes. They're pretty much the same design. There's no left or right side to this. The only difference is the slot right here is slightly wider than this slot right here. This is gonna be the wider side as well. So you flip it around, it's gonna be the exact same thing, wide. The wide section is going to actually go facing the top of the hub, and the small section is going to be facing the bottom. And you also have these little tabs on the side. You got 6 tabs, 3 on each side, and that actually touches it right here on these little sections. That's where the tabs meet up, right there. You're going to want to put some grease or some lubricant right there, because that's what the tabs slide up and down whenever you're pulling on the handbrake to lock the brakes up. And then when you release them, so you do have some movement. But you're going to have six of these, 3, 4, 5, and the way around. So you put some lube on that and we'll get them installed. Alright guys, so we're going to be installing the shoes the same way it came out. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure this white section is facing up, and you're going to end up lining up the one you took off. Make sure it still lines up to there. That's going to be in this. Alright guys, it was pretty easy to get it to line up. You just remember it has that little spring on there, so you got to push it in quite a bit. And then just turn it a quarter turn for it to stay on there. Next thing we're going to be doing is a spring on the bottom. On this next step, all we're doing is sliding the spring over this mechanism right here. Put it in that little slot. Just rest it there for the simple fact that it's going to be a pain to get that spring in there if the other shoe is already on there. You got these little grooves, one on the bottom, and then you're gonna have the one on top, which I'll show you later. And that's the one where this shoe actually goes into right there, and it's gonna be sitting next to this metal piece here in the center. This one's a little opened up, but you can see the groove right there. The shoe sits inside that slot. It's gonna be the same thing on this side. But yeah, once you can have that spring on there, we'll just stretch it out this way and lock it into place. Let me go ahead and set this other shoe on this side. Alright guys, we're going to spin the hub, line it up, screw that in. Should be set. Now it's going to be the bottom spring that we had put in here previously. The shoes are supposed to sit on this metal piece right here. This is a little off right here. So is this one, so we're just going to move it around so it's close to hitting that metal bracket. The spring's there, and all we're gonna do is grab this side right here and just slide it back into that hole. This piece right here, and the way this works, it's actually one side's a swivel and it just slides into place, so be careful when you take it out. You might end up losing this piece. And the other side is actually like a screw. So when you're turning this, it's either screwing in or out, and it's actually, it opens up, and what it's doing, it sits in here, it's pushing the pads out up against the drums. Depending on which way you drop this in, it's going to be the way it loosens or tightens, because if you put it this way, it's going to go clockwise. Set it this way, it'll be going the same, but you'll be turning it the opposite direction. Alright guys, the bottom spring's on there. This is what's going to be going on next. Just go ahead and slide it on there right quick. You can stretch these shoes out a little bit. Once that's on there, you'll be springs next, which is going to be on the bottom. Alright guys, there you have it. Disassemble and assembly of the shoe pads themselves. The way this was designed, when you turn this, it skips over this spring right here. So that's the only reason the nut doesn't back off or get tightened, for the fact that the spring holds it in place in the groove. Every time you spin it, it jumps and it lands inside that spring again. Before you put your rotor on, I would suggest to figure out which way you're going to be turning it to open it up. This way is going to be, we're going to be moving it down. You see where it's opening up the shoes. And then once you figure that out, you go ahead and install the rotor. For lack of ease, you're not there trying to figure it out. On the rotor, you're gonna have the slots, or the openings where the studs go. Then you're gonna have another empty slot to where it lines up to where you can adjust your brake shoes. I've heard go all the way down to where it doesn't, or open it all the way up to where you can't spin the adjuster anymore. And from there, I've heard back it up 3 clicks, and I've heard back it up 5. I would just go, I guess, back it up 4 clicks and call it good. See if you could spin the rotor. If it spins, it's good. You could go in there and then pull on the E-brake and see where you're at. Once you do that on here, and if you still have too much slack on the E-brake, or the car's still moving around, I guess from there you move on to adjusting the handbrake. But that's going to be it on adjusting the brake shoes for this. Alright guys, once the rotor's on there, you can see the mechanism in here to open it or adjust the brakes. You might have to move the rotor around a little bit to get it to line up in the right spot, so you can actually put the screwdriver in there and adjust it up or down. But if it doesn't line up, just go ahead and turn the rotor and you should be fine. The last step you're going to want to do is go ahead and install your calipers again. Get them nice and tight, and put some lug nuts handy so it pushes the rotor into place inside into the hub, and everything sits nice and flush. And then you could adjust it where it needs to be. That way it's not off or anything once you put the wheel on there or anything.